What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Delon Franklin. Let's talk. I don't think we really understand how damaging sin is. And I know in our current culture, right, sin is not a word that we use a lot, especially sometimes in church. We will call it a mistake. We will call it a bad decision. We'll call it a bad choice. And in some ways, it is just as simple as a mistake, unintentional things that we do, decisions that we make, force of habit, reflexes, things that we do by accident. But in a lot of ways, we kind of steal the power away from the true reality of our sinful decisions. When we don't call it sin, we kind of steal the power away, or the emphasis away, or the importance away from it. Sin is to do something outside of the will of God. Now, there can be God's personal will, individual will toward you, where God commands you to go somewhere or do something. And that is sin, but it's sin for different reasons. It's like unbelief. Like, for example, when the Israelites are told to inhabit the promised land and they don't obey God because of the fear of the giants, that is a sin of clear unbelief that God, it is clear that they don't believe that God keeps his promises, or God won't give them victory over. That's sin in and of itself. But then there is sin which is produced from the same place, meaning unbelief that God won't do something. So I am going to do something on my own, forcefully, sometimes at the expense of another or the expense of a group, to get what I want. Sin, in essence, is that behavior where we decide to do something out of the will of God, outside of his established word, what he said is not for humanity to do. But we don't understand how powerful it is, the destruction it causes in our lives. We often don't think deeply about how much pain we cause families, nations, people, just because of the things that we want. I could put myself in it and say, the men or the women that I was with or I did stuff with or flirted with, whatever it is, before I found my wife and before God blessed me with her, I have no idea the amount of stress or angst or pain I caused them because of my own desires and my own wants, or the lies I've told, or the things that I've done. I don't know how much damage I've done. I can only repent before God and pray that they forgive me, and pray for forgiveness and live my life differently to not cause more pain. But we don't often understand how much pain we cause other people when we go outside of the will of God. When the father is not faithful to the mother, or the mother is unfaithful to the father, or the child becomes addicted to a substance or whatever, or disobeys their parents in another way. People, we do not understand how much pain and how destructive our sinful habits are. That's why God puts it in full view, because we can only oftentimes see the pleasure of what we've chosen. We can only see the benefit, the momentary, temporary benefit of what we've chosen. That's all we see. We don't see the pain and the punishment and the destruction on the back end. We don't. We don't consider those things. We're not prudent enough to see the future, to look beyond this moment, to make a decision for the better. But God puts it in perspective for us that sin leads to death. Death of what? Death of relationship, death of peace, death of harmony, death of love, death of unity. The list goes on. Things die. And ultimately, in the end, we die when we choose sin. We lose our soul. We lose ourselves. We are away from the life of God. This is all wrapped in God's commands and his goodness. If we were to really see our sin for what it was and what it is and what it could be, right? Because we don't just stop sinning. Sometimes we sin in the future. Even after salvation, we sin in the future. But if we would just stop and pause and think of, what will this decision cost me? What will this decision cost them? What will this act of selfishness do to the people around me and ultimately do to myself and then do to my relationship with God? We downplay sin. We really do. We downplay what we say is good for us when it's actually destructive for us. We downplay it. We don't think of it as important. But God, in his love and in his mercy, gives us commandments to describe what will happen if we decide to do things our way, if we decide to do things outside of his will. He tells us, he says, you will die. You will surely die. You will surely miss out on what life truly is. Sin is destructive. We need to have a clear view of how destructive it is.